stuff that we go through today. Um, we'll kind of clear up some of the stuff because I know last week we gave you guys a lot, which is uh sometimes what happens. It's just we wanted to make sure you guys had the basics to do those exercises, but today we're definitely going to clear some stuff up. And yeah, speaking of today's review, or today's session, today we're gonna go what today's gonna look like. So we're gonna go over combining variables. We did that a little bit last week as well. Updating variables with themselves. We're gonna talk about variable scope today, which is an important concept, and some other bonus features that you guys can use in Trinket, and then some other examples. So is everyone okay with sharing their code? Did anyone have any problems with it? If you had trouble getting the link, right, this is how you do it in Trinket. You just need to find that share button after you save it and then click link. That's how you grab your link and then just go to the forums on our website. This is also one quick review of how setup and draw works. So setup, right? When any code that you put in there gets run only once, right? Whereas draw, any code you put in there gets executed repeatedly until you stop the program. So I know I had some questions about that over the week. Just keep that in mind for any future assignments. If you're trying to repeat a task or have something continuously happen, you generally want to put it in draw. If you have something happen once, right, put it in setup. Okay. So let's continue with variables. So combining variables. So we can combine variables, right? Or add or subtract them the same way we do with just regular numbers, right? So just a short example here, if we have A is equal to 20 and B is equal to 30, if we do print A plus B, it's going to print 50, right? Same sort of type of thing. If we multiply the two together, we'll get 600. We can also set other variables to to the values of so like the sum or the difference or the product of two variables, right? So here we have B minus A divided by 5. D will then be set to 2. Okay. Can't hear me? Can anyone else not hear me? Or oh, you can hear? Okay. Okay. All right. So why use variables, right? The two main reasons why we like to use them is if we're keeping track of values that we want to change a lot, right? Or if we want to keep track of values that we use a lot. So if we need to change them or use them, it's good to store them in a variable. Real quick, in a game, guys, could you guys put in the chat if you guys were building a game, what would be a good example of something you want to use a variable for? Right? Just really quickly, if you guys have any ideas. Points. Great. Speed. That's a good one. Any other ones? Anything maybe pertaining to like if you have a player in your game, right? Is there anything that you want to keep track about that player, like a character in a game? Any ideas? Position. That's a good one. Health. That's a very good one. Yeah. So you guys, yeah, name, stats, all that kind of stuff, right? So stuff you might want to keep track of, just more examples, is like a player's health, position, score, right? Enemy spawn rate, stuff like that. Like there's tons of things, okay? As you guys get into higher level programs, it's pretty hard to do them without variables, right? Unless you want to write thousands of lines of code, which I don't think anyone wants to do. Right. So there is a bit of a naming convention when it comes to naming variables. So variables in their names anywhere, you can include spaces. You also, the first character must be either a letter, can be uppercase or lowercase, or an underscore character. Okay. If it's anything but those two, you will get an error. Okay. They also, the name of variables cannot be like Python keywords. So like print, import, def, global, those kind of things. It cannot be those words alone. You could do like print name if it's like all one word. That's fine. Okay. But you cannot have it just be like have a variable called print or a variable called import. You guys will know if it's a keyword, if in Trinket it highlights, I believe, pink, purple, that weird pink purplish color. So if you type it and you say like print is equal to 5 and you see print is highlighted pink, change that name. Okay. Python's naming convention is also name sensitive. So if you do capital P or capital S for score, that's different from lowercase s score. Okay. Yeah. So this is our first question for the day. So excuse me. So using mouse X and arithmetic operators and the ellipse function that we have, right? What would be a way to make the size of the circle proportional to how far left or right the screen is, how far left or right the mouse is on the screen? Okay, so this will be a question in Top Hat. I will start the question here and then I will share it on my screen with you guys. I'll give you guys a quick second to get onto Top Hat too. Just give me a sec. Okay, so the question is up, guys. So you can see it's here, right? Remember to with each variable, with each, oh, that's all good. See if you can log back in quick, Sienna. You still have some time. Let me check. Okay, I think we're good. All right, let's see. So yeah. All right. So most of you answered C. Now let's break it down, shall we? So you remember that our mouse X, mouse Y, right? Those are like the first two arguments of Eclipse are it gives us our position. So that's right. So you guys pick that. And then mouse X times 0.25 and then mouse X times 0.25, right? For the height and width. That would probably be the best response. So most of you guys got it right, right? Because remember how the size variable works when we create our window. The farther to the left that you go, the smaller the value of mouse X that you have, right? So if you multiply this by a certain number or a constant, right, like 0.25, it's going to increase as it's going to increase and decrease as you move side to side, right? So that would be the correct response. Well done, guys. Okay. So updating the variable within itself, right? So we all know about the assignment operator, which is the equal sign, which is this one right here, right? You can do that. But you guys got to remember too that you have to have your variable name on the left and then your value on the right. Okay. You can't have it the other way around, right? You can also do operators like this one here we see with height. So if we set height to say 170, and then we say height is equal to height plus 5, excuse me, what we're doing is we're actually taking the current value of height at this point, right? At this point here, the current value of height is still 170. Okay. And what we're telling Python to do is we're saying, hey, take this height that we have and just add 5 to it and set height to that value again. Okay. So if we print height after this, we'll see that height has been changed to 175. You can do that as well. So if you need to update variables, this is a good way to do it. Okay. Keep in mind though, if we had a line like this, if we said height was equal to 200, we will have completely overwritten the value of height when it was 175 and the value will be changed to 200. Okay. So if we had another print statement underneath here, right, we would see 200 get printed out. Okay. Okay. We also have shorthand in Python. So for updating values, So we can do something like this. So if we say x plus equals 5, what we're really saying is we're saying x is equal to x plus 5. So take the current value of x, add 5, set it to x. We can also do that with minus, right? And then we can also do it with the star multiplication as well. Okay. So this is our first exercise for the day. Okay. So you guys are going to have, there's code in the bottom if you guys have access to the slides. If you don't, here, I'll copy and paste this and put it in. Okay. So that's the initial code that you guys are going to need for this. But let me go over the exercise here. So we're going to, when you put this code into Trinket, right, this is what you'll get. You get one rectangle on the bottom left, one on the bottom right. Okay. What we want you guys to do is take that code and change it so that you get this printed on the screen. So you have the rectangles going corner to corner. Okay. Don't change the values of the rectangle in terms of like the side, the width, and the height. Okay. Leave those. I guess they're technically squares, but you guys know what I mean, right? But you're only changing the X and Y values. Okay. So you're going to need to do a little copy and pasting, right? Yeah. So don't forget to, you guys are going to need run at the bottom of that code. Sorry, I don't know why it's not there. But how can you guys change it so that you guys can make a diagonal line? Okay. And there's also a just a little part two question, right? So you guys have got to understand the relationship between the coordinates, or keep in mind of the coordinate system, how it works with rectangles, right? The X and Y coordinate that you're given is the top left corner. I hope you guys all remember too how you guys remember how to what's it called? Remember how the size window operates, right? So if you go to the right, you increase in the X. If you go down, you increase in the Y. Um yeah, so give that a try, guys. Does everyone have the code? Do I need to go back and see it? I think we're all good. Okay, let's get our breakout rooms set up and we'll give you guys, this one should be pretty quick. We'll give you guys maybe 10 to 15 minutes how to do this, to do this one, and then we'll move on.
Okay, I'm just gonna jump into a room real quick and head back out.
Okay, sounds good. Also, sorry, Tony, I completely missed that first top hat question. Tony, you're
Oops,
muted.
sorry, I'm muted. Yeah. But yes, so yeah, no worries. If you can just like do that all three questions at the end, I think that'd be also great.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna, yeah, I'll do it at the end. That actually makes better sense. Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
Do you know, sorry, do you know real quick which group that Abdel student is? He was saying he had trouble.
Looks like he's in group seven, Zaid
Okay.
Hoda.
Okay. I feel kind of bad because he always says he doesn't understand, but I think he also said he's on two different laptops, so it's probably making life a little bit hard. But
Oh right, yeah, that's why he showed up twice.
okay.
So how are you finding the session so far, Melanie? Like as a mentor?
I think it's going okay, like content wise and like pacing wise. It was a little bit fast last week, but I think it's going pretty good. Pretty much the same as like other years. So
Okay, that's good to hear.
mm,
Yeah, last session was not my most proudest session because of how fast it went, and yeah, but I'm glad today seems to be going a little bit better.
well, it does seem like there was a lot of content to cover. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, how long did I say that we would do the rooms for? Did I say 15 or 10?
I think 10. I'm
Yeah, I
not
think
really quite sure when, but
I think I said that like 12, 13.
all right,
So,
thanks.
okay. What did I do here? Nice. Do you guys have any midterm this week? Any midterms?
Yeah, I had one for Sench 550, and I have one next week for my biomedical class.
Yeah, I have
Okay.
one next Friday for BMed for biomed too.
Nice.
Biomaterials?
Yeah.
How are you finding the class?
It's pretty good. Like I thought the labs were okay.
Yeah,
And then material wise, it's interesting because it's pretty different from like software.
yeah. I don't know. It feels like an imposter being there, like wearing a lab coat and everything, but still being in software.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah, like the lab reports though were kind of rough.
oh yeah, that one. There was a lot of writing.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're in your last year then?
Yeah. Last year and then yeah, last year pretty much. What about you?
Yeah, same. Lights at the end of the tunnel, so just gonna try to push forward and finish this up.
Mm-hmm.
Are you taking a lot of courses or?
I've got 4 this semester, and then next semester, I'm trying to get 4, but it seems like I might have to take 5 because one of my biomed classes, I was asking if I can substitute it for like a software tech elect instead, and I'm just waiting for them to approve it. So
Oh yeah, I did that.
yeah, because there are not a lot of good biomed tech elects for software.
Yeah, that's why I chose BMN 511 because there's no like spooky math.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What other BMed classes did you take?
So this is the first one, and the next one will be the imaging class.
Oh yeah. Nice.
All right, breaker room's closing.
All right, guys, as you're spilling in, if you guys want to just message me in the chat and just tell me how this exercise went. How did you guys find it? Where did you guys get up to? Did you guys finish it? Let me know. Went well. It was nice. A lot of copying and pasting if you did it right. Okay, let's go over a quick solution here. So, here, let me zoom in because it might not be easy to read. There we go. Is that okay? Can you guys all see that? Yeah, just let me know in the chat. I always have weird sizing issues. Good. Okay. So as always, we have our from processing import star. Always need that. Didn't need a draw function. We just kept everything in setup, but that's good. So we set, and then we have all our background size and filling. That's all good and fine, Danny. You guys didn't need to change that. So we have our first X and Y positions of our first square. Okay. And then we define our first rectangle here, which is in the bottom left corner. Okay. Now we need to move it because the squares are 100 by 100, right? We had to move the X and Y coordinates accordingly, right? So as you can see here, if we move the X 100 to the right, right, that's what that's doing. If you add 100 to X, you move it to the right. And if you take away 100 from Y, you move it up, right? So as you can see, we just repeated this process and then drew a new rectangle every time, right? So, and it's literally just rinse and repeat for that whole thing here. You guys can literally see that like this code is identical to this bit, is identical to this bit, and then is identical to this bit, right? So pretty simple, right? And once you kind of got the first rectangle, I think it was pretty easy to get the rest. Later on in the course though, we're going to see how to do this without having to copy paste many lines when we start getting into loops, which will be fun. I'm excited for that. Okay. Okay, so let's move on. right? So now we're going to talk about variable scope, okay? So variable scope basically defines how long variables last for and like where you can see them within your program, okay? So because we use setup and draw a lot, any functions you define inside of those functions are only visible inside of those functions. Okay, so if you create a variable called x is equal to 100 inside setup or draw, you cannot see if you try to access, let's say you create a variable called x and you set it to 100 in setup, right? Unless you define it properly, and I'll show you guys how to do this, but if you just said x is equal to 100 in setup, if you would go into draw and try and change the value of x, right, you would get an error, or you wouldn't get the right output that you would want. Okay, so in order to do so, we got to use something called the global keyword. Okay, and I'll show you guys what that means. So a bit of an analogy to understand this. So the global scope, right, which means like it's kind of a general overview, right? So if we think of it like the United Nations, right? The United Nations says a basic human rights law that every country must follow is no slavery, right? So anywhere you go in the world, right, we say no slavery, okay? But if you were to go to, say, Canada, for example, right, we have our own laws when it comes to the legal drinking age, right, which is 18. But then if you go to the US, right, they say it's 21, right? So think of global scope as like something that's set up for every function within your program, and then each function can also have its own variables within it. Okay, so we have limited scope. So this is the example, kind of what I was talking about, right? So if we have a variable called x in setup, right, and we set it equal to 10, we do whatever we want, right? If we go into draw and say print x without defining another variable x here, this will give us an error, because according to draw, there's no such thing as x, right? So if we want draw to be able to see x, right, and we want to be able to change it in other functions, right, so we need to declare global inside of each function, right? And if you guys see at the top here, we've actually declared x is equal to 0, and then inside each function, this line here and this line here, we declare it global. And basically what that's saying is that it's saying that, hey, there's a variable x in the global scope. When we use x inside of this function, we want you to use the x that was declared outside of the variable. Okay, we want you to use the global version of x. Okay. I actually have a little example to show you guys. Let me do this. Okay, so let's look at this here real quick. So there's this basic code, right? Ignore this output, but if I were to run this code, right? Can anyone tell me what the value of x would be here? We declare x here. Here we, in this function called change x, we say x is equal to 600. This is changing x, right? This is the function that changes x to 600, and then we're printing x. Can you guys type in the chat real quick what you think the value that will get printed out is of x? So like at this print statement here, what's going to get printed out? Anyone tell me? Okay, so pretty mixed. Let's see what happens, right? If I click run, you guys can see 200's printing out. Okay, that's because the x that's being changed here is not the same x, or the x here is not the same x that's here. Okay, so if we want to change this, if we go global x, right, now Python knows that it says, oh, global x. Okay, which x are we talking about? This x. So we want to change it. We're going to change it to 600. If we run this, you guys can see now 600 is called out. Okay, does that kind of make sense? It's just a very simple example. So if you might define a variable up here in the early parts of your code, if you want to change it inside of a function, so this could be changed to setup or draw, right? If you guys want to change it in there, right, you need to declare it global. Okay, general rule of thumb too, if you know you're going to declare something global, do it at the very top of your function. That way you won't have any errors in your code. Okay, So this is just, again, a very similar example to what I just did, right? So X is here, right? Setup doesn't involve X. In def draw, we declare global X here, gives us access to the X inside of draw. If we increment X by 1, right, this will give us a different version for the ellipse, right? And it'll just repeat. This will just give us a series of ellipses that go from left to right on your screen, okay? So this is our second question of the day. Everyone head over to Top Hat. Okay, but I'll read out quickly. So does the following code work as expected and make a circle that moves to the right? Why or why not? Okay, so I'll go over the code quickly. We have draw here. We have our background, which is set up, right? We have X is equal to 10, and then we're going to increment X by 1, and then we're going to have the ellipse. Okay, the code is here. I will start the question on Top Hat. Okay, so the question is up, guys. I will pull it here too. Question, Sophie, what are you asking? Do you need the code?
Oh yeah, never never mind.
Oh,
I
the
just went
code.
to the side.
Here, I'll show you guys the code here, right? If you guys have the question on top of it, I shouldn't need to, yeah, I'll just show it here. Just one sec. Okay, we got about 30 seconds left. Good to hear, Sienna. Last 15. Okay, I think we're good. 47. Oh no, I'll let it go. Okay, we'll stop there. Okay, so if we look at the responses, all right. So most of you said that that it will create a new circle, right? You guys, but if we look at the code, let's look at the code here real quick, right? Let's break down what's happening. Okay. So in our def draw, you guys remember how draw works, right? It runs repeatedly, right? We're going to have the background here. Oops. We're gonna have the background printed out, okay? And that's fine because we want to not create infinite amount of circles, right? But look what happens every time we run draw. We set X equal to 10, and then we add 1, right? So X will be here and it'll be equal to 11, right? And then if we go again, background's printed out, then X is equal to 10, X adds 1, and then X will be 11. So will the ball really move? No, it won't. So if we look at our options here, so we know that the ball is not moving, right? So we can take out A and B, right? And then if we look at C says no, but the draw function does not recognize variables created like this. The circle can't even be drawn. No, it's being created properly. So then the correct answer would be D. So we check, right? Correct answer is D. Okay. And that's because, right, as we saw, x is being set equal to 10 every time, and then you're just adding 1. So every time you print out that circle, it's going to be, the x coordinate's always going to be, what's it called? 11, right? Does that make sense to everyone? That's kind of the first question that's kind of split the group like that. It's good to see. Not making it too easy for you guys. Okay. So again, you can use variables to change other variables as we saw before. So for example, like 2 variables, if we store the player's x position and the speed, right? If we want to change how fast the character moves, right? We can just change the speed, right? And we'll kind of see how that plays later on, or actually right here, sorry. But so like this is an example of how you'd use like a speed variable, right? So if we set in the top here, we have our speed set to 3, okay? And then we have our x variable here that's changing, that's increasing by the amount that we set speed by. So whatever x is, it's getting, we're saying x equals x plus speed, but speed is 3. So that we're saying, really what we're saying is x equals x plus 3, okay? And then we're printing out a circle, okay? Above here, we'd have the background printed out every time. And you'd see this kind of code in like our draw, right? Because we want it to loop continuously, okay? Yeah, but if we increase the value of speed, so we change it to 5, you guys can see that it moves a lot faster, right? So like the speed comparison between 3 and 5 is, you guys can see it, right? So you can also add gravity in your code, right? Now, beforehand, right, with speed, right, you guys saw that the ball moved at the consistent speed, right? It was the same speed across the screen. But if we want to say accelerate, right, we not only need to change the x position, x or y positions of our object, but we also need to increase the speed, right? So if we want to do something like that, we could increase the value of speed, or y's, like we could increase, say, our y position, and then we increase our speed as well, right? Because so then it'll move at different lengths, give the illusion that it is accelerating or decelerating, right? So that actually brings us to exercise 2. So we want to write a program that to draw a circle which moves diagonally down to from the top left to the bottom right in the window and disappears. Okay. If you can as well, as a bit of a bonus, right? Make the circle gradually change from red to blue. Okay, that's not important. I'd rather you guys get the ball moving from top left to bottom right. Okay. And then worry about colors. And I'm gonna add a little bit of a bonus to you guys. If you guys can get it to accelerate or decelerate, that would be the next step. Okay. So I wanted to first get it to move from top left, bottom right. If you got that, see if you can make it move faster or slower as it goes from top left to bottom right. Okay. A couple key things to remember, right? The position of circle, both its x and its y coordinate need to be updated, right? Try using the shorthand operators we used, right? But you guys can also use like x equals x plus whatever. That works as well. Okay. And for coloring the circle, right? How do you get red, blue, and purple, right? Like how do you change those values over time? If you guys did the assignments, you shouldn't really have a problem with it. It takes a little bit of tweaking, but yeah. So try that. We'll go into our breakout rooms. We're doing pretty good for time. So I'll give you guys about 15 minutes to do this exercise. But yeah, we'll get the breakout room set up. And yeah. Tony, am I going too fast? I just realized it's 12:45. We're like halfway through the session, but we're almost done the slides.
Yeah, possibly.
Okay.
But then again, I'm not really sure how you can like stretch it out.
I'm not like I'm okay with having some extra time at the end because it gives them a good time to ask questions, right? And then clear
Right.
some stuff up. But I always just I don't want to like give them the assignment and then not having gone through the slides. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I don't know. We'll try
I
and
suppose
sort.
it's good because they'll just have time to like talk with their mentors, like work on the exercises at the end.
Because I'm pretty sure after this, yeah, we're like in the special features. There's like 3 more slides. So but also these slides were like significantly shorter than last week. So
Hey, is it cool if I leave a bit early today since none of my
Yeah.
mentees showed up? Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Just make sure you fill out that debrief thing and you're all good to go. Thanks.
Awesome. All right. See you guys next week then.
bye, see you.
Yeah.
I had 4 midterms this week, Tony. I'm so burnt out.
Sorry, upcoming or this week?
This week
Like-
I just finished 4.
Oh, damn. Is it kind of like smooth sailing now until reading week or?
No, not really, because we had a lot of our assignments that we usually do this week. They're due like all before Wednesday. So
Right.
I gotta hunker down even more. But yeah, it's crazy.
Like what kind of courses are you taking?
So I'm in 3rd year software eng, but like I think a lot of the courses are changed. Like 480, like what's it called? I believe that's like data structures, right? With Masabi. That one's still, I think that one's been around for a little bit, but our OS class, like operating systems, I think is new. We have embedded systems, which I also think is new. And then we have our networks class, which I think was originally done by the computer science faculty, but now it's done by the software degree or software faculty. So it's new as well. So and then economics.
Yeah, those
209.
were the heavy courses. 457, the operating systems one, networks.
Mhm.
Is it
They're-
like less like do you guys study theory like in the networks class or is it more practical? Like do you guys do more coding?
more practical. Like all of our labs are pretty much coding, like coding sockets, proxy servers, that kind of stuff. Just learning how to do that kind of stuff. So yeah. I'd say the only really theory we've done is in that 480 class, that data structures one, and a little bit in OS, not a ton though. So
It's kind of good to hear these changes because back then, like under comp sci, it would be like all theory and lectures, and then
mhm.
your labs would be like all coding, but like it didn't really cover, like there wasn't really overlap. So it was a lot that you had to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that like with my year, they've changed a lot. Because I was talking to people who I think are in the same year as you, and they hadn't heard of these courses that I had done or doing. I think there's some that were similar, but not like word for word the same course, you know? Like we were looking trying to see if we could find old midterms online and like the courses didn't even exist. So yeah.
It's good that they make you guys more competitive those because back then it was like comp sci versus software engineering. It just was. It seemed like to be a lot of it was the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're starting to make that gap bigger though, because like, comp sci is supposed to be more, I would say, on the theory side of things, right? Whereas engineering is supposed to be kind of like implementing the stuff that they uncover. So it's good because I don't like theory.
Yeah, that reminds me of first year, the calculus class. Like the professor would start talking theory, and like everybody would like disengage and like stop paying attention.
Mhm. Yeah, I never like theory. Sometimes it's interesting though. I was a little frustrated though, because last semester with the courses I had, I had 5 courses, but I only had 2 finals, and the rest were project based classes. And then, you know, they kind of, I don't know, like, did you take 480? Because you're in software too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Did you have a design structures class, data structures, where you'd learn about like different patterns of how to code and stuff? I would assume you would have, right?
yeah, principles of software design. Yeah, I took it.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Did you guys have a final in that class or no? Do you remember?
I don't believe I had a final. I think it might have been like a final project.
Oh, okay, yeah, because that's what we have, but it was weird because we have 2 midterms in that class, but no final. That was I've never seen that. I thought that was weird.
That class was not very memorable. I don't really remember like what we did in it.
Mm. I don't know. The second I saw I had Musavi again, I knew I had to go to the classes and actually pay attention because I made that mistake in 337 and yeah, wasn't good.
Oh yeah, 337 was brutal. I think that like is my worst like software course. That was when COVID first hit, and then like I thought
Mhm.
I could, get away easily with the things, but like it wasn't good for me.
Yeah, that was a rough semester, man. That final for that 337 for me was worth 75%, and then 375 for math was also worth 82% the final. So it's not an easy time for finals for me, but yeah, we got through it. So
So I think if we close at 12:55.
I'd say so. They have I want to like we have time, so they have a bit of I want to see if maybe if they can play around with it a bit. But yeah.
Yeah, and then I think 12:55. So let's say you take 10 minutes to go over like the last few slides and like the 3 top hat questions.
Mhm.
That would probably put us close to 105, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then we could give them like the rest of the time to work with
Questions.
like the exercises.
Mhm. Actually, I didn't look at the exercises yet. I usually skip that. What do they have to do this week? Not terrible stuff.
I'm not sure if you did it last time, but you could like walk through like what's just happening in the GIF.
Mm-hmm. Those are pretty cool exercises. I watched last week's video from the session we posted. Ooh, not my best session, but I can do.
What didn't you like about it?
I didn't feel I wasn't a fan of how I explained things. Like I didn't feel like I explained it well enough. I felt like I was stuttering a little bit too. But yeah, I don't know. I tried my best today to read the notes, read the slides extra early so that I wasn't yeah. Just come up with ways to describe it better. I was trying so hard to come up with an analogy for the global functions when I saw that slide. Like I got to ear and I was like, oh, how could I describe this in a way that they could understand it? I didn't even see the next slide. So
Yeah, that one's a bit controversial because like there's always been some discussion about like the drinking ages one, but it does work.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's like kind of hard. I was trying to think of like I don't know. I was trying to do like a description with holes. Like if you had like a field of holes and you like put a it was like not a good, just not good at all. Shoot, why don't I just Google it?
But yeah, I think the mentees probably don't notice your mistakes as much as you do, so I think you're still doing good.
Yeah. I am pretty hard on myself when it comes to stuff like this, but as long as they're understanding it. I mean, I know last week was just a lot of content at them and some of them didn't really understand, but hopefully after this week, once they get to play around with that stuff a bit more, they get an idea for like the basic functionality of stuff and like the basic setup. Like that's always the worst part. Like if you like once you understand like where to kind of get started, it's easy, but if you don't know where to get started, it's hard, right? So there's like that one student, I don't know if you saw in the Discord, that's like, I don't even know how to get started. It's just like, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna close the breakout rooms now.
Okay, sounds good. All right, guys. For those of you who are here, you guys want to just put in chat how you guys found that exercise? Did you guys get it? Were you guys able to expand on it? Just let me know how that exercise went. What were some of the troubles? Maybe if you ran into any. Yeah. Did most of you guys get it? Did you guys get all of the other things I asked? Like, were you guys able to add the color? Were you guys able to what's it called? Maybe make the ball speed up as it travels? Okay. All right. So here, let's go over a quick solution. Well, not quick. Where did I put it? Here it is. Okay. So again, we have our processing from import star, right? Because we wanted to work on the global function a bit or work on sorry, not global functions, work on making things global and understanding the scope, right? What we did is we defined our X position and Y position outside of our setup and draw functions. Okay. And then we also defined the color that we want to use, right? So if we wanted to make it change color, right, this is how we did it, right? Because yeah, we have our setup, defines the window, that's fine, right? And then in our draw, so you guys can see in our draw, right, we're declaring the X position, Y position, red and blue colors global. So we're using these ones we defined here, okay? Just a quick note, you guys could do it this way. This is just defining multiple variables in one line. You guys also could have gone global Y pose and like done one for each one as well. That would have been perfectly fine as well. Okay. Because we're trying to make the ball move, right? We need to have our background and background inside of our draw function, right? Because if we didn't have this in here, what you would see is you would just see a line of circles going from the top to bottom. We don't want that, right? We want to hide the ones that we did before. So we tell Python, hey, can you create a background and fill it in repeatedly, okay? Then we have our circle, right? Which we use the X and Y coordinates of, right? And then basic size that we use. So we used 40 and 40, right? Now we want to move it, right? So here we increment the X and Y positions by 2, okay? This is once when draw gets looped again, right? We'll see that the X and Y position have then changed by 2 because we're using the global values, right? We're not redefining, like we're not going X pose equals 10 in here, like we saw in that one example, that one question. So they will have increased by the next time we use it, right? And then same sort of deal for the color, right? We want to change the red and blue color, so we decrement their values, okay? Does that make sense to everyone? Does anyone have any questions about it, right? What makes it disappear? It's this line here, okay? Here, let me show you what happens. If I take this out, right, and I run this, you guys can see that it just makes a straight line, okay? So what's essentially happening, right, is we are like, this is still happening. Like there's still however many circles are being created, but because we're calling the background, right, it overwrites it, right? It makes it disappear. Like it hides any ones that we've written behind, and then we put a new circle. So if we run this, right, you can see how to speed up. Yep, I can do that. So if we have our X and Y position here, right? So let's define a variable called speed, right? Let's say speed is equal to 1, okay? And we'll declare it global here, okay? That's speed. So what we'll do then is we'll increase the X and the Y by our speed, okay? But so if we do that, right, and we stop this and we run it, it moves a little bit slower because I set the speed to a slower value, right? But it's going to move very slow, okay? As of right now, I haven't changed much from what we had before. I just defined the amount that we increment the X and Y position by just into a variable, right? But if we wanted to make it speed up, then after we have added the speed to the X and Y position, right, we're going to add a value to the speed. So let's increment it by 2, okay? Stop and run. You guys can see it just shot right across. Let's do it by 1, so it's a little slower. You guys can see how it starts off slow and then increases, okay? Let me actually decrease it a little bit more. 0.5. See if that works. Can you guys see how it's like starting off slow and then it rapidly speeds up? Yeah, okay, perfect, right? So instead of, because beforehand what we were doing is we were just adding a fixed value to X and Y, right? But now that value that we're adding is also increasing, right? So that's how you would make it speed up, right? You could also make it slow down, right? So if we wanted, let's set speed to 10. Let's do 5 actually. And let's, we want to subtract. No, we want to add. Keep it adding, but this time the speed's going to slow down, right? If we did this, to a certain point, right? Like let's do this. It's a little hard to show because I need to implement concepts that we haven't really talked about, but you guys can see that it starts to slow down. It goes back up because I don't have something in there that stops the ball from going back, but we'll talk about that later. It also speeds up. It shouldn't be. You might have to double check how you're doing it, but we can talk about that later. It's hard for me to, how do you add gravity? Well, gravity is kind of the similar concept. So let's say, well, how big are we here, right? So let's start our X and Y. Let's put it at the very bottom. So how big is this thing? So we'll do 500 minus 400. So we'll do 460, right? We'll put it at the very bottom. What's halfway? 460 again. Okay. Let's do this, right? So if we want to go up and then down, okay, we need to minus the speed, right? Well, I'm going to make this one again. I'm just going to get the ball to move up to start, okay? And the X position actually won't change, so we can take that out, okay? So if we do this, let's see what happens. So you can see that the ball is just moving up very slowly, okay? Now, if we wanted, I kind of did this earlier, but if we take speed, right? I'm going to change this to 2 just to make it a little bit slower. But if we decrement the speed, right? Essentially what we're doing is we're taking the Y coordinate and we're adding a smaller and smaller value and then making that value even smaller and smaller to the point where it gets negative, and then the Y position will eventually get negative. Okay. Actually that stays a plus, right? Equals, oh no, minus equals 0.5. Let's try that, see what happens. Let's increment it a bit more. What am I doing wrong here? I did this earlier. Let's try this. Let's just see if we add a crazy high value. What will happen? Let's increase. Oh, I'm going the wrong direction. Whoops. I always forget. We want to minus speed. No, add speed should be good. Nope, minus speed, right? Because we want to go down. Up, increase in speed. Sorry, the windows always mess with me. Minus speed. Where am I going wrong here? Mentors, any suggestions? Because so let's think about this, right? If we start here and we go up, right? Or we're starting down here, we want to go up and then down. So we have to decrease the Y and then eventually increase it. Right. So decrease it first. That should work. But essentially, guys, you just have to play around with what's it called? The window, in the sense that, like, you gotta understand that too, like you're increasing Y in this direction, right? So we're gonna start here, we're gonna decrease the Y, but then eventually we want to increase it. Oh, so we're gonna minus this. So we're gonna minus our speed, but then we're gonna increase our speed. Oh, what am I doing here? Well, I'll come back to this, guys. We'll do some questions and then I'll do this. I can't remember how to do it. It takes a little bit of math, but let's go over some additional features that you guys can use. Okay. So we have text and lines as well within Python that you can use. If you want to write text, right, you just have to define your text size. So, or font size, right? So in this case, we use 20. Text align. So similar to rectangles, the X and Y coordinate is like the top left corner of the screen. So in order to do that, yeah, but the thing is too, is it's a little finicky. So you guys have to play around with it when you guys include text into your thing. You might need to move it one or what's it called? Like one or two to the left, to the right. But yeah, and then to actually define what text you want, right? You just put the text and then you don't forget the double quotes or single quotes, those work as well. And then the X and Y position of the top left corner of that text. Okay. You can also draw lines. So using stroke, right? You guys can also define the color of that line, right? And then the line takes in 4 arguments. This is the X and Y of the first point, as you guys can see here, and then the X and Y of the second point, and it'll connect those 2 points via a line. Okay. So you guys can also combine this to draw text with variables. Okay. So we can set a font size, right? We can have a text. We can increment the X and Y as we've seen before with rectangles and circles, right? And then you can add that as well. Okay. You can also add fading colors. Okay. So if you'd like, oops, sorry. So you can what's it called? You can also change. So you guys remember in previous assignments we had to change the colors, right? You can also add, would be one way to do it, right? So if you have the fill, right, and then you have a variable green, right, which would be initialized to some value. So say if you wanted it like the least amount of green, you could set it equal to 0, and then you could increment that so you get more green over time, right? So yeah. So again, don't forget how to submit exercises. Okay. Is everyone okay with submitting exercise? I'm actually gonna go back to that example where we showed how to add gravity to art, and I'll kind of show you guys also too what a debugging process looks like. Right. So I think that's about everything for today. Actually, before I do that, we had one more top hat question for you guys, and it was just asking you guys how you guys found the last session. If you guys would like, I'm going to just present it real quick. We'll do that, and then I will, what's it called? I'll go over how I would debug a certain situation like this. If you guys would like to just hop on top of that and do that, great. Assignments should be done in the same link. Let me double check though. Let me just see how you guys, for the most part, let's see. Sorry, I have all the text and stuff. So it was great, good. That's what I like to see. It's great. Some of you guys had some trouble. That's also good to see, right? Good. And then some of you guys didn't submit. That's okay. Yeah. So I'm going to show you guys too. This might help you guys with your assignments, right? Is how to kind of work through and debug code, right? So for someone like me, right? And I don't know if you guys used print statements at all when you guys were what's it called, working through your exercises, but print statements are a great way to kind of see what's happening within your code. Okay, so for example, I'm going to add one in here and I just want to see what the Y position is going to be, right? Because I'm curious, because I don't know exactly what's happening here. So if we look what will we need to run this here, right? So you guys can see it infinitely prints out and it's going infinitely down, okay? So now that I know that, stop this so that doesn't run to infinity. Just want to see something here. So eventually it gets negative. So then we need see if that makes a difference. Nope. Just keep going negative. Let me think about this then.
Are you trying to make it accelerate down and then go back up, or just
Yeah.
accelerate down?
Just to go up and then down.
Like I can make it accelerate like down, but I don't know how to get to go back up without like if statements.
So what if we increment the speed here, but then decrease the value of the speed? Nope, just keeps going all the way negative. Does anyone in the chat have any suggestions on what I could do while I try and figure this out? Because we can see here that, right, the values of the Y position, right, they start at the bottom here, right? And then it gets bigger, or it gets smaller, 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 and then eventually hits 0. Speed equals -10, and then increment that speed. Sure, let's try that. Hey, that works. Now let's that's a pretty big speed. Now let's see if we can get it to go all the way up. Because right now it just does this little boop. If I increment this value here. So that technically works. Now we just need to find the right value that works for us. So let's try 2. So we're going pretty fast. Oh, there we go. Maybe try 1.5 or 1. There we go. Right. So you guys kind of see how I use the print statements to see what was going on in my code, right? Because a lot of times I noticed, oh, okay, so, right, if we just had it before, right, you can also see too, right? Like this is the Y position I'm printing out. And you can see it starts at 430, decreases, 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 decreases. And then at some point, right, I could see, oh, okay, it was going negative. So I just needed to figure out or get help from in the chat. Just see find the right math that kind of gives it the effect that I want, right? what does speed plus plus do? So that would be the same. I don't know. I can't remember if Python has that. So if I did this, that's essentially just incrementing it by 1, right? I can't remember if that's only like C++ and Java, but let's try. Yeah. So no, you can't do that. So that's something that we won't really cover because it's not in Python, but in other programming languages, if you had like speed plus plus, that would just increment whatever variable you're using by 1, right? So it'd be the same as this, right? It's just another shorthand version. Yeah. Any other questions, guys? Is there anything else you want to see? I know I saw a few things early in the chat, but I kind of missed them. Anything else, guys? We're basically at the end of our lectures now. Oh, actually, before we do that, let's go over the exercises for this week. Okay. So for bug busters, right? You guys have these two this week. So we have first 2 circles that start from the left hand and right hand side. They cross, right? But as they're going, they're getting brighter, right, in their respective colors. Okay. And then for the second exercise, you have a circle increasing in size, but it also changes in color opposite to that of the background. So the background starts off black, the circle starts off as green as possible, and then they kind of they invert their colors to each other. Okay. And then for for Pythonic lava, right? So you guys saw similar, you guys have an exercise similar to what we just went over about how to decrease and increase speed. For your first exercises, it's like throwing a ball off a cliff, right? Excuse me. And then the second one here is a crosshair that follows your mouse, right? But the little rectangles expand as the program goes on. Okay. Does that make sense? Do I need to go back and look at them? Do you guys have any questions about these exercises? I'll show you the additional ones as well real quickly. If you have extra time, I'd recommend doing this. If you guys can do this one, you do exercises 4, right? Yeah, for Pythonic lava, you have to do 3 and 4 to get full points. Kyle, to answer your question. For these ones, right? I think these are really good exercises that will really help your guys' knowledge of what we went over today. Also, kind of go over like the gravity situation that we had. Number 5 is also interesting as well. Yeah. What else do we have? And then these are some other ones. So you could put like a ball on a spring, right? Using that line function that we had before. Or you could have a a line of circles following your mouse around. Those are a couple extras. Okay. I did have one question. How do you add 2 circles moving at the same time? How do you mean? Do you mean in like have 2 circles moving at the same time? If that's what you mean, yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah. So there's multiple ways you could do it. Depending on the way the direction that they're moving, like say if they're moving in the same direction, like if you had 2 balls side by side moving up and down, either direction, you can do what we've done before, which is just create a single X variable. Let me pull it up here. Oh no, these are the slides I want. Do I have 2 of the same slides? Sorry, 1 second. But we use like a variable called X position and Y position, right? In our examples. Do we have an example here? Where'd it go? Oh, here we go. Sorry. If we look here, right, like you see how we have X position and Y position. If they're going in the same direction, you could just use the same, like say, for example, if you have 2 balls side by side and they're moving down, you could use, say, the same X position, but then you need 2 different Y position. No, sorry, 2 different X positions, right, to separate them. But then you could use the same Y position and decrement it that way, right? If they're going opposite directions or they're not, or they're going just they're moving completely separately of each other, you could define like X position 1, X position 2, and try and get those balls to move that way, and then increment them or decrement them accordingly, however you need them to move. Any other questions? Does that make sense? Perfect. We have about 10 minutes left, guys. So if you guys want to ask any questions, now's the time to do it. Where are my slides? Where are the slides? Any questions about the exercises at all? Right? If you guys don't have any questions, right, you guys are more than welcome to leave. We are at the end of the session. Could you also do the top? Oh, sorry. Actually, no, don't leave. Don't leave. Don't leave. Sorry, I had the top hat questions. I completely forgot to do. Oh, wait, no. Oh, the end of session top hat, right? Whoops, sorry. Give me a sec, guys. These are just a couple of questions. If you guys want to head over to top hat, we have a couple more. So the first is just asking about the content in the what's it called that we covered today. So those questions are open now if you guys would like to go do it. This is more so just feedback for us guys, so that in future sessions we can adjust the content accordingly. Does everyone see the question? Okay, looks like everyone's responded, so we have one more. Do you guys see the second question that's posted? Oh, there you go. Yeah, people are answering. Perfect. Okay, looks like everyone has responded. Okay, perfect. So yeah, now guys, we are in the end of our session. If you guys have any questions, it's now the time to ask. Otherwise, have a great weekend. And let us know if you have any problems with the exercises. Yeah, I believe the bot commands are still what's it called? Still not working yet in the Discord. So if you guys have a question, just ask in the best place to ask, guys, is in that help channel on Discord. But you guys, like I said, can always message me or the mentors directly if you need. If you don't feel comfortable asking in a group chat, that's perfectly fine. Next week I haven't looked, but here let me double check for you. Next week will be we're gonna cover like work a little bit more with scope. But we're also gonna start introducing like Boolean, what Booleans are, and like working on if else statements. Okay. And then we're also gonna talk about a few more operators. Like operators that are like what's it called, like plus equals, not those ones, but we'll have a couple more that we're going to introduce you guys. But the main focus of next week's session will be if else statements. No worries. Oops. Any other questions, guys? We're pretty much at 1:30 here, so if you have a question, now's the time to answer it or ask it. Sorry. You're welcome, Sienna. See you next week. Not necessarily. I want you guys to focus on what's it called? On just like the mechanics of it and like the actual movements of the objects that are in there. Colors don't really matter, but try and add some color, right? It always looks good when you do, and also shows us that you know how to use the color functions properly. So some color would be good. Now it doesn't matter if it's the same color, but um yeah.
All right, so I think that is just all